We're etching closer and closer to the beginning of the end here, with only 4 rounds remaining for the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Series on Apex Racing TV. And what a substantial, what an awesome, what a brilliant season it's been so far. And we head to Twin Ring Motegi and into Asia, Japan, for the first time this season. The final continent we visit this season on our virtual calendar. We've been to North America, we've been to Europe, we've been to Oceania. Now we go to Asia, of course, as well. And it's a circuit that is simulated quite well on iRacing. The Japanese tarmac is ever so tough to drive on. And the challenge today in GT cars will be ever more thrilling, of course, too. For myself, Jonathan Simon, welcome to the broadcast. Daniel Leet alongside me, Scott Newton behind the scenes in production. Daniel, welcome to Motegi once again. And it's a circuit that, I mean, how thrilling is this? We have our final sprint format for the season under a circuit that includes an oval, which we won't use. And like I said before, the Japanese tarmac that's simulated on iRacing is very slippery at times.
Yeah, good evening, Jonathan, and to all the viewers tuning in. Yeah, certainly looking forward to being back here at Motegi for last sprint round. The circuit itself, absolutely fantastic, offers a lot of technical challenges, especially through that last portion. And I think even though it's night and the grip will be up, like you say, the drivers will certainly have a lot to contend with the grip factors out there tonight as well.
Yeah, most certainly. And it's been a race format we always look forward to, Daniel. Remember the race at Monza was quite thrilling too in these cars. But the challenge in these sprint format races is coming from our 90-minute events and coming from our 45-minute races, we expect pit stops. But then when we head to the sprint round, no pit stops, of course, expected. It's not mandatory under the rules. How do you approach this format as a driver?
Look, this one's an all-out brawl. You get into it and you go hard and fast right from the start. Setup obviously being fixed, it'll be probably a little more tailored to utilise all the needs of the tyres and get the most out of it over the course of that 20-minute sprint. But for the drivers out there tonight, no holds barred at least.
And as we flick over to the race for the first time, it's going to be time to look at our grid for our 20-minute event this evening here. Sunday night, of course. Welcome along whether you're joining us in Australia or anywhere else out there in the world. It'll be Adam Gardner starting on pole alongside Justin Wallace. At the moment, it'll be a rolling start as usual around Motegi. Lee Vandenberg will start from third alongside Matt Morris. The typical names up there in your top 10 don't recognize Neil Pearson qualifying that well. So that's a brilliant qualifying performance for him up there in the top 10. Simon Mazzomo, of course, as he's very popular amongst the Scops community, starts outside our top 10 down the order. And other notable names, Daniel, I'm missing a few names. I don't want to mention anybody, but there could be some names in that second split, of course. This has strong participation this series in the GTs. It's a very well-run championship, the Aussie Mixed and Fixed League, and it goes to show that we can't even fit all the drivers into one split.
Well, yeah, I mean, participation's been exceptional the last few seasons and increasing week in, week out. So drivers got a lot of contention if they want to get up into the top split. And for all the drivers that have made it, they're going to be at it fantastically again, as we've come to expect from this series. So.
And heading through what is the final couple of corners of this racetrack, this is one of the best overtaking spots, of course, heading into this right-hander. Now, with the pace car pulling into the pits, we're ready to begin this race. We're running the full course layout here at Motegi, and a circuit that was built just over 20 years ago. What a thrilling sight it is with that brilliant mammoth grandstand in the background. But for Adam Gardner, he'll be focused on the apex at turn 1. He'll floor it. And yet again here, we go green for the Aussie Mix and Fixed GT Series.
Yeah, looks like everyone getting away to a really good start. Going to be a lot of 2 and 3 wide action into turn 1 there. It looks like everyone getting underway pretty comfortably now.
Yeah, looks like a clean start so far. How about Matt Morris there promoting himself up in a third, just ahead of Lee Vandenberg. Morris with a good getaway. And a lot of movers and shakers down the back end of the pack. How about Pat Gallo? Gallo at the moment's just forming up behind a couple of drivers. 2 by 2 as they head through the first corners, Daniel. But that's brilliant to see here. A series that, of course, has race control, sponsored by Harvey Bay Auto Glass. And they know these drivers are going to be penalized if they're a bit too dirty in the opening laps.
Well, yeah, and that's something that they're not going to want to do. They just keep their noses clean and get on with it. And right now we're seeing a lot of consideration being given just to make sure they can get through that first few corners and get a clear opening.
Yeah, most certainly. Here they are now through this twisty, tight, medium-speed complex of Motegi. This is the middle sector, of course, and then now we head through this progressive final part of the lap. Now, this includes one of the best overtaking spots, but in the lead so far, it's still Gardner. And Gardner's got a comfortable advantage here over Justin Wallace, almost a second. So as he heads through the alternate pit lane here we use when we use the short course, I see a nice little scrap between Wallace and Morris. I think Morris is a bit too far behind, but this downhill braking zone presents another tough challenge.
Yeah, Morris coming up the ladder pretty well. He's got a good start here and looks to be in a good position going forward. The car of his tonight's working pretty well.
And that looks like Chris Pellet off the racetrack. Oh, and a spinner on the main straight. There's a spinner on the main straight. That's Stephen Lattimore. The race on Oscar is turned around. Now, I didn't quite see whether that was on his own or whether or not he did have contact, but definitely for Chris Pellet, bit of contact there into the final corner. We'll look at some replays for sure. Now through the middle sector, the leaders go. So between Gardner, Wallace, and Morris, they remain stagnant. Now down the back end of the order, how about Michael Kirkham, the privateer here, Daniel, in the Porsche? Michael Kirkham is all over the rear end of Edwards and Mazzomo. Mazzomo's up 4 positions here at the beginning of the race. He looks quite racy, does Simon Mazzomo. And at the moment, though, Kirkham's, I think, got the same... He's got the same adrenaline as Mazzomo at the moment. He's trying to find a way around him. Mazzomo did pass him earlier this lap.
Yeah, Mazzomo's a pretty tough customer to get around, so to see Kirkham trying to do this now, he'll have to spend a little bit of time. He'll get a good run as they work their way up through towards the hairpin here, so potentially a move down at the end of this long straight here, and it's a great opportunity for a good passing move if you can get the car.
And at the moment, it's a very clean start to the race from the field. Not that that's a bad thing or a good thing. It's just, I'd say if anything, it's a good thing, of course. But we're expecting a bit more argy-bargy here in the opening lap. Jeremy Clark down the back end of the order. In a scrap between himself, Kenneth Ladder up ahead, and Brett Hender. Hender doesn't get the best of runs. Whoa, there's a Ferrari in the wall. That's Pat Gallo. And the Mach 1 esports driver out of the race. Now, Daniel, is that final corner at Motegi just... I mean, provide that tough of a challenge getting on the throttle, or do you think it's cold tyres in these early laps?
No, it is a tough corner because the run out through 12, 13, it's a tight sweeping left-hander, and you have that really sharp break in for 14 onto the final straight there. So you do get a lot of sudden momentum swing in the car, and it's very easy to run it wide, and getting the tyre out wide there, you do stand a pretty good chance of looping it. So 14 probably one of the trickier corners on the track here that the guys will need to negotiate.
Yeah, you saw at the bottom end of the screen, race control already investigating some early lap contact. But this is Kenneth Ladder on screen here in the 15th position. Now, where is he? He's right behind Brett Hender for Team Hyperdrive. Haven't seen much of Brett Hender this season in the BMW, but this is this very tight and twisty final section of the racetrack. Middle section of the racetrack. Look at the gaps on the left-hand side of the screen. It's so much yellow and orange at the moment, Daniel, but then you look at P1 and P2, it's all white there. 1.3 seconds between Gardner and Wallace.
Well, if you can get a little bit of a break here, you're likely to increase with the strength of field that we've got out there tonight. A lot of very talented drivers, we said earlier on. These gaps are not really going to grow much more than what we're seeing now. So as those battle packs start forming up, especially from Wallace and Morris, and that going back, that's just going to tighten up ever more and more. And if anything, probably going to play to Gardner's strength here and allow him to extend the lead, as we can see him doing now.
And there's that Velocity Motorsport magazine racing car. I thought he was having a peak. He actually was having a peak. I thought he was going to make a move there eventually, but he's just trying to keep himself in the mirrors of Justin Wallace. I'll tell you what, though, he doesn't want to be there for too long. He's got an opportunity here into turn 3, the left-hander. And Morris is just going to have to remain behind. You know, Morris has the pace, Daniel. It seems like he's got to find a way around Wallace I think on the back straight this time round. He can't afford to make that move any later.
No, and from what we've seen from Morris, especially throughout the season, he's been extremely strong in these 20-minute race formats. So look for him to come through a little bit earlier. But as you say, yeah, the ideal, if you can get a run down in towards turn 9, as we see the guys starting to approach the S's at the moment, potentially into 9, maybe up at the hairpin, and then down in towards turn 11, he's got a pretty good opportunity for 3 reasonably tight corners that will probably play to the advantage of that Porsche. Having said that, he's chasing Wallace again, who is in a Porsche, so could be a little bit tit for tat between those two. So we'll keep an eye on how they unfold.
Now, that spin for Lattimore earlier on is critical for the championship. He came into this round with the championship lead, but now Craig Edwards, of course, in a 9th position. You thought he was in a bad state after his qualifying performance. There he is on screen. And unfortunately for him, he's, fortunately for him, he's disposed of course, his championship leader with no further errors. We ride on board with Edwards. Let's have a listen to him here through the middle sector and under the oval. There's that difficult final corner we were talking about. He's got the slipstream here on Dave Clements in the Mach 1 Esports car. That's a fun first couple of corners, isn't it, Daniel? Double Apex right-hander. Just let the car sail in, smack the throttle, get all the traction in the world, right?
Well, yeah, pretty much. I mean, Motegi being as wide as it is really presents a lot of opportunities, and he's getting a good view of that here from Craig Edwards with the different lines you can take around this course. So through turns 1 and 2, as you say, double Apex, you can go 2 or 3 different lines through there. Similarly, turns 3 and 4, and then set yourself up for a good run into 5. So a lot of opportunities for these drivers. Maybe experiment with those lines. Obviously, with just over 7.5 minutes gone in the race so far, not a lot of time left to play with those options, but certainly some interesting opportunities that they could present themselves later on.
And this circuit, built in 1997 in the real world, laser scanned and brought to iRacing decades later, and it's a circuit that was built by Honda, and another Honda test track, Daniel, was Suzuka, are also available in iRacing.
Yeah, a couple of great Japanese circuits. I mean, I probably a little bit more fond of Motegi as opposed to Suzuka, which I know is a bit of blasphemy, but
God, what am I listening to?
certainly enjoy this course. I find a lot more enjoyable than Suzuka. Not to take anything away from that, but yeah, it is what it is. But all in all, I think it presents some very, very good racing, and circuit probably not used as much as it probably should in iRacing, to be honest.
Well, the AMF League organisers agree with you because Suzuka's not on the schedule this season. Motegi is. Now, I was wrong in my intro, by the way. Correction. 4 continents we visited too. That's a typo on my end. Somehow just got fat fingers. Put a little 3 in my notes, but 4 continents we visited here, and we are going to visit for all 12 rounds. Here's some battling away here down the bottom end of the top 10. Mazomo and Kirkham alongside each other. This is Edwards down the back of the pack in 9th. And everybody right now not getting restless, just trying to get a little bit hungry for position.
Yeah, this gap's really started closing up. We've got the guys fighting over, where are we, 8th, 9th, 10th and 11th at the moment. So a pretty strong little train of cars, and all these drivers exceptionally well talented and have been along this service for a long time. So Edwards, if anything, maybe a little bit of a cork in the bottle at the moment in the Ford, but having said that, it looks to be extending a little bit of a gap over Kirkham just ahead.
Sort of a look, if Simon Mazomo can continue his good progress in this race. He was inside the top 10 at one point. Now his pace seems to be lacking a little bit here through the middle stages of the race. Now, why do you think that's the case, Daniel? Do you think he just had a rapid start, or do you think he's running a qualifying setup that helped in the first few laps, or do you think I'm just overthinking it? Nothing on your end? You didn't get that?
No, sorry. Yeah, qualifying setup, race setup will all be the same, so probably nothing too much there. However, we don't typically see Mazomo in these cars a lot. Having said that, potentially could be down in second split at times. But all in all, big adjustment. We know Mazomo is very, very competent in the V8, so probably a little bit different driving style to what he's used to traditionally, and just finding himself maybe struggling just a touch to get on top of that car.
Now, that penalty at the bottom end of the screen is for Brad Clank, who's all the way down there in the 19th position. Now, do I see somebody making a move there in the foreground, of course? And it is. That looked like Edwards making his way past Clements. And Dave Clements now on the back foot here as they run down to turn 3. It looks like Edwards is going to seal that 8th position all to his own. And a brilliant move there by Edwards, but he's got 3 seconds to make up to Nathan Huppert's in the Fusion Sim Racing car up ahead. His teammate is not going to be ever easy to pass. And do I see Morris and Wallace slicing and dicing for 2nd and 3rd? They are. Wallace and Morris have swapped positions. Morris demoted back to 3rd.
Yeah, these two have not been that far away from each other. Great awareness to push through 2x2 through the S's there. And Morris just getting into a bit of position, takes the traditional racing line. Wallace really going defensive down into turn 9. And I think this is really going to play into Morris's strength here as he runs again. Normal racing line there. Wallace still very, very defensive. And if anything, yeah, Morris should get this one sealed down into turn 11.
Yeah, lovely work right now. Morris has got to get the best run he's had all race. We're already over 50% of the distance and time in this race. Morris having a look yet again here on Justin Wallace. Let's ride on board with him. And difference of lines here through the final sector. Let's see who gets the best run coming out of the final corner here. Wallace seems to be widening the track a lot better here, Daniel, and even using some of the grass there to get a best run and carry a lot of minimum speed.
Yeah, it was interesting to see that Wallace seemed to be able to flow the car a little further through that corner there. Having said that, Morris, extremely great under brakes into turn 1, closing that gap down a little bit more. But a couple of interesting points in that last section. It looked like through turn 10 off the final hairpin, Wallace was just able to back up the Morris a little bit on the exit there, which ultimately did help him retain that position. So a little bit of a racecraft starting to really come into effect with just over 8 minutes left to go.
And look at this between your top, well, at least 2nd to 6th. Very tight between all of these guys. It's a small little train developing between Wallace, Morris, Vandenberg, Pearson behind, of course. There's the graphic on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. Everybody a little close to each other, and you can see it visually on screen here. Man, I love racing here through the night, Daniel. We should have more night races in iRacing.
Oh, it's really, really good to see. It's a circuit reasonably well lit, so that does help as well. Similar to if you go to somewhere like Spa, for instance, a little bit darker at points, but racing all in all around here has been fantastic so far, and I think we're only getting set for what could be even better next race along.
And 24 degrees Celsius track temp, so a lot of grip available to the drivers. Now, I thought Wallace there was on the back foot with such a wide apex, but he managed to get away with it. Morris not getting all the traction in the world. There's the details up on screen. So 23 ambient, 24 track temp. But like we said, the Japanese tarmac isn't ever easy to drive. That's how brilliant that's how brilliant of a job iRacing have done. They brought in all that weather factor, and all of those factors on the right-hand side of the screen, Daniel, are not for looks. It's not to make this look like it's the real world. It does affect your car.
Yeah, iRacing have put a lot of effort in over the last few season builds to get the tyre modelling working very well with the change in weather conditions, and especially on the dirt side with the change in how that circuit plays from wet to dry. It's been really evident that they've transitioned a lot of that across from dirt to road.
We move down to Kirkham here, down the back end of the pack. Kirkham, who's behind him? This is Clements, Mazoma. This is continuing away. It feels like we've had the same battles all race. Martin Crisp, by the way, off camera, has just made his way past David Miller in that Redback Racing Porsche. Crisp as well, running a 154 licensed car. Now, we know the higher the number, the more qualified you technically are, the higher I rating you have. So that's brilliant to see a driver in the 100s of Martin Crisp there, pulling off a move on David Miller, a 949 car.
Yeah, definitely, and it's just going to come down a lot more to race cars and driving. We'll jump back and we'll check out the replay now as we see the move down. I think it's into turn number 4.
Oh, was there a bit of contact there? I think that was more of a mistake than a move.
Yeah, it looked like the Redback car just losing a little bit on initial entry, and that allowed Miller to get back under, or actually change of position there for Crisp, to get through on him there. So good awareness from Martin Crisp to be able to position that car nicely. These two still going at it though. Miller not wanting to stay down in the 18th position. So we'll look for him to make a move momentarily as you see him right on the back through turn 11 and getting up to this fun little last complex of the circuit through the double left and right.
Fun track is Motegi. Get your hands on iRacing. Go to iRacing.com and get yourself a subscription, especially through these Black Friday sales that are going on. And you'll be able to join in on all the action, especially once you pass through the rookie classes. iRacing can be even more fun, especially if you're new to sim racing. But nevertheless, we watched David Miller on screen with Martin Crisp, who's heavily defensive here on the back straight as they head to this downhill braking zone at Motegi. I love a downhill braking zone, Daniel, more than I do an uphill braking zone. I feel like it's more of a fun-natured challenge than an uphill braking zone is.
Yeah, well, I mean, uphill, if you use Coda as a prime example of that, into turn 1, you've got a lot shorter stopping distance. That hill really helps give you a little bit more sort of artificial aid. But I think there's certainly something to be said for the guys that are really good on the left or right foot, pulling it up in a downhill position. If you can get a move done as well, you're really on top of your racecraft at that point.
Still watching Miller on screen. Oh, sorry, excuse me. Watching Lattimore now down the back of the pack. So Stephen Lattimore in 21st. Remember, important for the championship here. Came into this race with the championship lead, and now that drop rounds are all accounted for as we look at the championship, this round's not going to help. So is he going to have to bounce back from this in race 2? Obviously, he's not going to get that reverse grid pole.
No, well, reverse grid pole will start from the 10th position, so a lot of work still to go with only 2.5 minutes on the clock. Doesn't look favourable for him there. So this is not going to be a race that he would have wanted, especially with points at the back end of this season being as tight as they are right now.
And Lee Vandenberg here. Vandenberg is about 1.5 seconds behind. He's under attack from the drivers behind of Neil Pearson, Timothy Phoebe, and of course Vandenberg not had the best of pace here since he started on the second row earlier this race, and he's only got a couple laps to go to defend here, Daniel. So the pressure's on, right, for Lee Vandenberg. How do you, if you're sitting in the cockpit for Lee Vandenberg, well, you're not obviously mirror driving, right?
Well, that's the hardest thing, and that we don't know whether he's got the artificial mirrors on in the car, but certainly something you don't want to be doing. The night running, if anything, maybe makes it a little bit more trickier with the reflection and the glare that you do get in the cockpit. So Lee's going to have to be really cautious here, as we say, 1.5 minutes still to go in this one. So he's got a lot of track left, maybe at least one more lap to try and hold off the charge of Neil Pearson. Neil, though, coming on exceptionally strong, up a couple of spots from where he started tonight and looking quite racy in the BMW behind.
Vandenberg here with a good run onto the back straight at Motegi. Again, if you run the short course layout here, this is where the race begins. Not for the full course we run today. There are the movers and shakers through your field there. And you can see a lot of drivers up a lot of positions there. Kenneth Ladder having a brilliant race, up 9 positions. Same can be said for Jesse Butler. Now through the final corner goes Vandenberg. Now I thought he butchered the final corner, but it was Neil Pearson now who did. And he's going to be under attack by the Mach 1 Esports BMW of Timothy Phoeben.
Yeah, very deceptive when you're watching off that rear chasing camera there, but Phoeben, a really opportunistic move down into turn 2, runs him a little wide. It's going to make it hard down into turn 3 here, so look for Pearson to maybe protect this one. Goes very defensive across the nose, and Phoeben not quite close enough to get that crisscross finish complete.
He thought about it, definitely did, Phoeben, and a bit tail happy through the exit as they head through the middle sector. Now we're going to begin. Where is Adam Gardner on screen? So Gardner is, here he is on the back straight. This will be the final lap right now for Gardner. He's going to head through the final few corners here. I think he should be able to maintain this lead over Wallace. What's happened to Adam Gardner's lead? Sorry, it's just baffling me at the moment. He did have over a second's advantage on Justin Wallace, and now Wallace is just, he's hunting him down. He's hounding him down. It's like there's no tomorrow here for Justin Wallace. And look at that visually on screen. He's lost over a second in elapsed time.
Yeah, it's a really bit of a concern there. We'll have to keep an eye on that, but the BMWs may be struggling just a little bit on initial braking. You can see Wallace coming in really hot, not behind, too far behind, in the bottom of frame there. We've got Matt Morris as well. So first three cars, they're almost all in position for any positional change that could come as a result.
And of course, Gardner had a few bad rounds to begin the season. Not the best of points scored for him. He's missed a round or two as well. But for today, all he'll worry about is not the championship, but a race win for confidence from Motegi. He wins the first of two sprint races this evening for the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Series. The Mach 1 Esports team will celebrate yet again with another race victory to add to their statistics total. Down the back end of the order, no position changes on the final lap for anyone in your top 10. Dave Clements did round out the top 10. Look at Lattimore here. He needs a move to claim a good strong haul of points for the championship, but the race on Oz driver doesn't want to risk any penalty points too, as he'll have to finish behind Jesse Butler in that JP Simshed Porsche in the 20th position. Grant Matterford comes home and rounds out the top 27. But again, we've seen a lot more action in the past, Daniel, for a sprint race, and possibly with the reverse grid, of course, for race 2. Of course, reverse for our top 10. It should spice things up just a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. Well, at the end of this, it'll pop Dave Clement up into provisional pole for the start of the next race. So we know Clement very, very good in these cars, and he's really going to probably relish starting off the front. Kirkham likewise as well. So I think race 2 is certainly going to be very, very interesting to see how this one wraps up for the remainder of.
I'm not sure if you heard it, but I did. A lot of fireworks going on here at Motegi as the checkered flag waved. But it'll be time to look at our final race results for race number 1 as soon as Pat Gallo will cross the line. One little piggy comes home. Remember, Gallo had the spin in the opening laps, and he's going to finish last of the drivers that took the green flag this race. So now it's time to look at our final race results as he crosses the line, and it's an event that Adam Gardner will celebrate for quite some time, but he'll have to do it again from reverse grid pole. He'll start 10th in race 2, of course. Dave Clements there, who finished 10th, as co-commentator Daniel Leach just said, will start on pole. Wallace and Morris with good results for themselves at the same time. For Lee Vandenberg, it was a stagnant race for him. Good results for Pearson and Phoeben. Nathan Huppert's up there too for Fusion Sim Racing, along with his teammate Craig Edwards. Edwards, this is critical for the championship. With a good result like that, he will start from 3rd. We'll cycle through the rest of the results on screen. But critically, Daniel, Craig Edwards will start 3rd for race 2 and could claim some good points for himself to win this championship for season 9.
Yeah, definitely. I think that might be a good fortune for Craig there, starting as high as he will with the reverse grid. It's only going to add additional points to his overall haul. We'll make it a little bit harder later on for Steve Lattimore, obviously going to be starting down in the 14th position, so he's got a lot more work to do to get back up and add additional points later on for the end of the.
Most certainly, and it will be a good time to speak to Adam Gardner himself, who, just won the first race. Adam Gardner, another brilliant victory for yourself. Hasn't been the best of seasons to look at overall for you, but a good confidence-boosting result for yourself. And now you'll have to do it again, but from the 10th position for race 2.
Yeah, it's been a pretty horrible season, to be honest. But it's really good to be back here talking to you guys again.
Yeah, awesome. And for yourself, it seemed to be a pretty clean race, but what happened in the final laps? You lost over a second and we didn't catch it on screen. Did you make a mistake somewhere?
I would like to say yes, but I think the tyres were just going on the M8 and getting some good pressure from Justin.
And what's caused that? Do you think you're just driving as you planned during practice, or do you think you were overdriving the car in the stint just to maintain the lead? Because if that happens in race 2, we could see you potentially losing a race victory, because this time you're going to have to overtake cars, which are going to burn the rubber more.
Yeah, potentially, but I guess it's really just trying to take it one position at a time for the next race and see where we end up.
And finally, looking forward to race 2 starting from 10th. It was a very clean start last time out for race 1, about 20 minutes ago. Are you going to be the one driver who decides, maybe keeps it clean, but it's going to be a little bit more aggressive, trying to make up more spots?
I think it's just being those calculated risks, really. Just seeing where we can push through and see where we end.
So last thing, is it best to be inside or outside for turn 1 at the start?
With these sprint races, it's a very unknown, so it can be messy either.
So, of course, Adam Gardner from Mac 1 Esports coming home in the first position. Hopefully see you in race 2, Adam. So we'll let him go for the moment. And we'll grab Justin Wallace. And Daniel, you'll be stood alongside Justin Wallace, of course, who was third in this championship. And that's a good strong haul of points for him to possibly win a Season 9 championship.
Yeah, good evening, Justin. Congratulations, mate. Second in race 1 tonight. You found yourself in a fantastic little scrap with Matt Morris for pretty much the entirety of the race. How were things out there for you?
Yeah, that was a good race. Matt really kept me honest there. We had a good little battle. We went side by side for half a lap, I think, at one stage, and then I just shook him and was able to start hunting down Adam again. But I think I just needed a couple more laps. Adam was too good at the end there, so yeah, it's a good race.
Yeah, well, let's jump to that quickly as well. The last couple of laps there, we noticed the gap that Adam had built up towards the back end of the race was up around 1.5 seconds, and towards the very last end there, you'd closed it right down to absolutely nothing, and looked like the Porsche coming on very, very strong at the back end of the race.
Yeah, as soon as I was getting a lower fuel load, I felt really good. Felt really comfortable once the fuel load started coming off. So yeah, that back end I felt heaps better than the first, I don't know, 10 minutes. So yeah, Porsche felt good at the end. So I just need another couple of laps.
And moving forward, race 2, obviously he's going to start out in 9th position as a result of the reverse grid. How are you looking forward to getting up back through the field, and is there anything you could potentially look to maybe help yourself get through?
Yeah, I think there'll be a couple of good passing spots on this track. So hopefully try and set up a few corners and get the good run down a couple of those back straights and try and get a couple of moves done.
Fantastic, mate. Well, we'll let you go reset for race 2. All the best, and hopefully we'll catch up with you again at the conclusion of that run.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
So that was Justin Wallace himself, who'll be looking for a good result in race 2. But for us, we're going to look forward to race 2 nevertheless. No matter who finishes where, no matter who starts where, it'll be another good race here for the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Series. Round number 9 for Season 9. And it's going to come up shortly. Don't leave us. Welcome back to Season 9, Round 9 from Motegi for the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Series, of course. And we just concluded Race 1. Now we head to Race number 2 this evening. Jonathan Simon with Daniel Leet, Scott Newton behind the scenes in production, and with all coverage on Apex Racing TV. Visit ApexRacingTV.com for more information on upcoming broadcasts. Now, in Race 1, Daniel, we didn't see much overtaking. It was a very clean race, very respectful between the drivers. Now, why is that the case here? Is that because of the nature of the circuit, or do you think it's because our talent has just qualified where they should have?
Look, it's a little bit of both, I think. I think the driving standards throughout the season, we've seen it multiple times so far, where the guys are very, very close together. They race against each other week in, week out, so they know a lot of their weaknesses and flaws, but also know a lot of the strengths. So certainly makes it very, very tricky. This track, with the way that the circuit flows, if you're able to get moves done early on in the lap, certainly gives you something to protect on. And probably the key points that we need to keep out for in race 2 for overtaking is definitely going to be the run through turns 1 and the exit of turn 2, the double left-hander, the run into 3, and we saw a couple of moves where guys tried the crisscross, maybe not quite actually got that done. Another one, turn 5, another big heavy stop, and then 9, 10 and 11 on this course. So plenty of opportunity for the guys to get moves done. It's just a matter of getting those opportunities set up and be able to go. But I think in race 2, knowing what we've seen already, these guys should be able to get something invented and create something a little bit interesting to see.
And they'll need to do that because the championship standings at the moment are ever so tight at the top. And here they are on screen. It's Stephen Lattimore that leads heading into the round. Now, these aren't updated, of course, after race 1, but these do account for drop rounds. And for Lattimore, after that abysmal first race, he would have wished that reverse grid, Daniel, was for the entire field. Unfortunately, it's only for the top 10.
Yeah, definitely was. We saw early on he did have a spin and dropped him down to 20th overall at the end of last race. So a lot of work to do. We'll have to keep an eye on, especially next week once the points update, just to see where he does come out at the end of this. But certainly a race 1 that he would like to finish.
But for Edwards and Wallace, good events for themselves. This is your pro class standings. And Cody Bird's just driven ever so splendidly, hasn't he? Even won our round at the Circuit of the Americas, Daniel. How thrilling is that for Cody Bird? Of course, I believe he's probably racing in second split today.
Yeah, look, certainly going to enjoy the lead that he had coming into this round. If he is having a run and hopefully he is in second split, we'll be able to add some additional points. Dave Clement will be looking to probably extend that position as well. Likewise, in the third split, we'll leave Vandenberg continuing on. Doesn't look like we've got Jeremy Clark. Actually, we do have him, sorry, out here tonight. And I think those two are going to be very, very close at the end of this race as well.
And this is Lee Vandenberg leading your amateur GTE standings. And this is the rookie GTE standings. Everybody with a 100 car number, of course. Martin Crisp leads that for the moment. 2,104 points to his name. Martin Crisp striving today in this top split. So look out for him. Of course, in his BMW for the Pulse Racing team. Now we're about to head over to the race. It's a short pace lap here, of course, today at Motegi, and we are not going to be racing at nighttime. Are you disappointed, Daniel, in that here? We've stayed up overnight virtually. You and I, we pulled an all-nighter, mate. We've come back to Motegi the next day. It says it's 4 a.m. at the moment. And, mate, this is a lot of sunlight for 4 a.m. as we look at the grid.
Yeah, certainly a lot of sunlight, but I think it'll add another good challenge for these drivers.
Sorry, mate. I was wondering about the sunlight, but yeah, go ahead.
No, well, it is reasonably light out there. It's certainly different to what we saw before in the pitch black, but I think it's going to add another exciting challenge, especially with that sunlight coming up, getting in the eyes. It's really going to play a little bit of havoc later on towards the end of the...
Now, of course, I haven't noticed this in Japan at 5 a.m. in the morning, but maybe because they're so close to the equator. I'm assuming the sun rises this early in the morning, but nevertheless, we will focus on general knowledge later, or somebody can yell at us in caps in the comment section and tell us the true facts. There's the grid on screen. Lattimore will start from 20th. Look out for him in the 907 car. Stephen Lattimore racing that forward for Race on Oz. It's just behind Jesse Butler and ahead of Stephen Bartholomew. Scott Gamble will start from 23rd. Scott Gamble does stream iRacing, so check him out for sure. He's an entertaining streamer himself, so give him some support where you can. Pat Gallo will start down the order in 30th. Of course, Kolstad, Mulqueen, and Farah race stewards here, Daniel, and they are not participating in the race. So it's 30 cars in the top split.
Yeah, very strong field tonight, and for the guys that are unfortunately not able to make it, no doubt they're having as equally good time down in second split, and hopefully next week, reverting back to the longer format, we will see maybe a little bit more change of those guys getting back up.
And remember, reverse grid pole for Jesse Butler, and he will floor it, and we will go green in a short moment's time here for race number 2 for 20 minutes.
So we've got a solid start, everyone getting wide, 2 and 3 wide down into turn 2. It's a lot of movement going on at the back. Dave Clement able to extend his lead and getting on pretty well. But everyone else getting through reasonably comfortably through the first section. Dave Miller just on the back of Gary Cousins in the Porsche there, but everyone else streaming on pretty well.
Yep, down the back of the pack, I'm watching Phoeben. Now, what's happened to Timothy Phoeben here in the opening stages? He's lost an immense amount of positions here. Few drivers off into the grass. There could be a pile up here. Everybody's avoiding the carnage. I see a Porsche there off into the barrier and stranded. And contact was always going to loom here through that tight first sector at Motegi. Yep, so what's gone on?
Yeah, we've got more contact at the back of the field with a couple of Race on Oz cars, I believe there. It looks like we also had one of the Fusion Sim Racing BMWs getting turned very early on as well, so we'll have to see if we can jump back and get a replay, but all chaos starting to break at the start of lap 1 here, so keep an eye just to see where everyone drops back down, but I noticed Dave Kirkham's involved in that. He's down 22 spots at the moment, finds himself down in 24th position, so big loser there. Looks like Justin Wallace involved as well, Nathan Happert's. Cut back to the replay now.
Yeah. And so watch the top end of the order at the moment. Looks like it's Dave Clements that leads from Edwards. Clements, remember, started on reverse pole. Edwards upper position. Now, where's Michael Kirkham? So Kirkham's down to 26. Yeah, sorry, excuse me. Kirkham is down to 26. He did start on the front row, so not a good start for Kirkham. But for Morris, a brilliant start. Up into 4th from 8th. Kenneth Latta from 13th to 7th. Look at all those drivers down the rear end of the top 10 here, Daniel. From Mazzomo to Hunter, Brett Hender, Jeremy Clark, Jordan Pruden. All capitalized on those early lap incidents.
Yeah, they've come out very, very well. Looks like Tim Phoeben dropping quite a few spots down into 13th as well, so look for him to come back up through the field. But a lot of opportunistic moves as that chaos unfolding. So down the inside, Jordan Pruden getting a move done too on Jeremy Clark, on Tim Phoeben, sorry. So that's a good positional change for 12th.
And look at this between Edwards and Pearson. Neil Pearson is going to try and bully Craig Edwards here. Craig Edwards, this is critical for the championship. Now a drive-through penalty for Michael Kirkham, who was deemed at fault for the early lap incident. So not only does he lose his front row start, but he's out of contention here. And critically, Justin Wallace is all the way down the order. This is a round to forget, Daniel, for Justin Wallace.
Yeah, certainly not going to help him at all. So he's got a lot of work to do to get back up the field there. And we'll keep an eye on that to see how he is able to unfold later on. But 17 minutes still to go on this one. Not going to be very, very easy for him to get back.
Through the final few corners, the leaders go. Clements will lead another lap here. And still plenty of time remaining. Don't forget, this is the second of our 2 sprint races this evening. Edwards now breaking away from Pearson. Pearson seems to carry a lot of speed into the braking zone of corners. Look at him through turn number 2 and 3 coming up now, Daniel. I feel like he's just going to throw it into the apex and park it. He doesn't carry too much minimum speed. Look again.
Yeah, holds that pretty defensively through the mid-corner there, which is not a bad way to go. You can back up the drivers behind you a little bit easier, so should be able to go. But Edwards not letting go of Clements just ahead. Pearson doing exceptionally well in that BMW, though, to sit in third.
Doing very well as Neil Pearson. You started on the third row. And right now, Clements isn't breaking away with a lead here. This reverse grid could spice up the action this race, Daniel, which is what we needed after race 1. And look at this, Clements. Now, I'm not sure if that was a defensive move there to the inside or if Edwards was taking a wider line just to extend the corner. But they've got to be careful here because if you're Edwards, you're on the attack and you're on the defensive at the same time. It's tricky racecraft.
Yeah, I think probably the position you want to be is maybe Matt Morris sitting there in the 4th position in that JPS Simshed car. So he's in the prime spot at the moment to let these guys scrap it out and potentially, with what we've seen go on earlier on, maybe spear off the edge of the track. So hopefully that doesn't unfold to any of the drivers ahead, but could be a good opportunity there for Morris as they come across the line to complete another lap. But Edwards all over the back of Dave Clements.
Brilliant stuff from Edwards in that Ford. And this is 3 different car makes here in your top 3. The Ferrari, the Ford, the BMW behind. How about Matt Morris in the Porsche? 4 different car makes here in your top 4. Running the GTEs this season. Did you like the switch, Daniel? I feel like it's a lot better compared to the development series we had for season 8, of course, now branded as the GT series, and now promoting GTE racing. These cars are what are they, more fun than GT3s, or do you think it presents just a different challenge? They're both equally fun.
Look, I think both cars are very, very good. It certainly provides a lot more challenge in the GTEs, removing some of those driver aids like the ABS that you get on the GT3 cars. And I think the switch that we've seen this season, going from the mix to a single class style car, has been really, really good for the series. The crew at AMF have done a fantastic job in getting this up and running, and at the moment we see the benefits of that. The racing is absolutely on point right now.
Yeah, we're right on board with Pearson. And look at his mirror there. Oh, where's Morris? I don't see Morris. Is he on the attack? Well, up ahead, the leaders are battling. Here's Morris around the outside. Hey, there's Clements and Edwards battling away for the first position. Looks like no one pulls off a move. Goodness gracious. I don't know who's on the defensive, who's on the attack.
Yeah, they're all fighting and scrapping. Morris might get this one done down into 11. Actually,
no.
Just gets Pearson. Pearson gets collected again further down the order there, so that's not great.
That's Pearson off the racetrack in the BMW. And, oh no, Matt Morris. Well, it's tough to call that one. I did feel like he gave Pearson ample time to recognize that Morris is going up the inside. I think Pearson just seemed to turn in on him, but we'll look at a replay nevertheless here. For Mazzomo on screen, he's in the Porsche. In that FT1 Motorsport Porsche. Now, has Mazzomo always run the Porsche? Do you remember this? I feel like he ran the Ferrari at one stage.
Yeah, I think he might have run the Ferrari last season, but great to see him still back out in the Porsche. We actually just see him dropping a position to Lee Vandenberg, who's just run really wide through turn 3. Actually lost a spot down in through 13 and 14 and just been able to redress that now. So not a great run through the mid-port for Vandenberg. Going to lose another spot to Kenneth Latter as well in that race on his Ferraris. So down 4 positions as a result of that off-track now.
Yeah, of course. So Lee Vandenberg with what seemed like an unforced error. Nevertheless, he's got some time to make amends for that, make those positions back up. Look at the timing screen on the left, Daniel. Do you notice something with the car makes?
We've got a lot of Ferraris, a lot of Porsches in there tonight, and
a
the
Ford
BMWs,
lead.
well, Ford up the front, but BMW actually not as strong as we've seen in previous races.
Yeah, and sorry, just as I crossed you, because I noticed that there were only 2 Fords in the top 20, one of them's about to lead this race potentially. Here they are on the back straight yet another time. Halfway through race 2 here from Motegi. It's going to be Edwards around the outside. He misses the corner. He's going to rejoin and damage the Porsche there of Morris. He needs to be careful. No Jacques Villeneuve at Gold Coast plays there for Edwards. He's going to lose an immense amount of positions, critically for the championship. Exactly what he didn't need, and that's Edwards again, and he's still in the wall. He has to wait for the entire field to pass through.
Yeah, that's a big punishment there. It's a little unforced error running wide down in the turn 11 there. Almost reminded me of the incident we saw a couple of seasons back at Bathurst with Whincup and Tander and those guys getting in under the bridge there. So a little unfortunate there. Edwards is not going to be ruining that chance. So we'll see what comes, whether race control deem anything of it. Did look like it got Matt Morris, but he's been able to continue on. However, they've now separated the gap 2.5 seconds over Simon Mazomo. So Clements and Morris still scrapping it out for first position now.
And go Richard Hunter into the 4th position. Richard Hunter representing, it says his team name is Richard Hunter. I almost read that. But of course, probably a privateer this afternoon, as far as we know at Apex Racing TV. So Hunter driving quite well for himself.
Yeah.
Go on.
No, I was going to say, no, he's doing very, very well. He actually had a really strong run, race number 1, and likewise, race 2 being very, very good for him as well. Not that far behind Mazomo, so really coming on exceptionally strong now.
Halfway through this race, Clements extends the advantage to Morris by 0.5 second. Looking down the rear end of the order, Lata just made his way past Pat Gallo for 18th and 19th. There's Simon Lata on screen. Pat Gallo in the Ferrari for Mach 1 Esports. One of those Mach 1 Esports cars leads. One of them won race 1. You like that pun, by the way? And the other one now is, that's one car off the racetrack, Simon Lada.
Yeah, it was a little unforced error, similar to what we saw from Craig Edwards a lap ago there. So it's very tricky for these guys getting down into turn 11 at the moment. So just a little bit of a reset on the brake application. We'll keep an eye on that. Looking at the back of that little fight there, looks like we've got Brad Klink coming under a bit of attack from Steve Bartholomew as well, a little further down. So racing all the way through this field, ever tight as we always come to expect at the moment.
Brad Klink down the back of the order. Commentator for Apex Racing TV. Should we present some bias to Brad Klink? Or is that a bad option?
Could be a bad option, but we'll give him a little bit of a plug. He's doing a good run. We didn't see him out there last week, so having a strong run for himself tonight, up in 21st position. A lot better for him race 2 as opposed to race 1 where he come down. I think it was down in 29th position. So solid effort for race 2, and he's only getting stronger. As we see, there was a car off on the inside. Is that Tim Phoeben person? Actually, Neil Pearson dropping down the order as well, so I'm not sure what happened there to him.
Neil Pearson, not having the best of races. We switch back to Brad Klink, the best driver in this series. No, I'm just messing with everybody. But Brad Klink is an awesome contributor to Apex Racing TV, of course. And I hope he makes up a few more positions to win this race. Stephen Bartholomew, though, didn't he start? Watch Brett Hender on screen, but I swear Bartholomew started Oh, no, he did start down there near the top 20. I'm getting him mixed up with someone else. But nevertheless, we look at Hender. Hender's right here behind Adam Gardner, winner from race 1. Now, Gardner hasn't made that much progress, but I don't know. Is it tough to make progress, I'd assume, here? 7th is still pretty good.
Yeah, I think a lot of the guys is really struggling a little bit under brakes, getting these cars turned and rotated through the corner. But having said that, Hender, race 1, come home 15th, up a little further now in 8th, so progressing nicely forward, and that'll be a good points haul for him. He's got Adam Gardner, race 1 winner, just ahead there, so he's finding himself in some good competition at the moment. Jeremy Clark just behind in that Pulse Racing car as well, or Wright Racing.
And that's our championship leader at the bottom of the screen, receiving a drive-through penalty for contact. And Stephen Lattimore, unfortunately, is... Well, I mean, definitely around to forget for himself. And who was that contact with? I didn't quite see the other car. It was a 700, possibly Neil Pearson, I think it was. So that might have been the reason why we saw Neil Pearson off the racetrack.
Yeah, it could have potentially been. We'll see if we can maybe check that out again later on. But yeah, certainly not what we would have expected to see there. And we'll keep an eye to see how that goes. But it would have been a tough one for race control to have to deviate that out. So, well, it is what it is, but racing will continue. 7 minutes still on the clock, and the scraps down the field starting to equal out. Looks like Clements Mazomo's equaled out a little bit more. What's actually happened to Matt Morris? He's nowhere to be seen up the top now.
Yeah, don't see Matt Morris anywhere there. Now, was that potentially because of the contact, wasn't it? Remember, Matt Morris, but then I don't think he spun around. So, Morris, I'm looking... I can't even see him on that timing screen. Oh, he's had a spin. There's the replay on screen. Oh, that caught me by surprise. Morris, look, what looked like an unforced error. Now, is that because of the damage possibly?
Yeah, I don't know. It looked like it was down a similar spot down in turn 11 as you see him putting a move on.
Oh, that was why. So that was why, Daniel. There was actually a move. We just missed that at the end of the replay.
Yeah, it's going to be unfortunate. I don't think, he'll not be happy with that one. So see if he can get back underway. Down in 13th, so dropped a lot of positions there. So it was at 11 spots down. So it's a little bit of a struggle one for Matt Morris here, race.
Wow, so for Morris, he promotes Mazomo into second. How about Richard Hunter into third? Richard Hunter, that's been a dream race for him, hasn't it, in the Ferrari? There he is on screen. Hunter himself started from 12th, up into third, and a possible podium here for Ferrari.
It's been a very solid run there for Hunter, and we're looking to see him go really well, doing a good job for DPR Racing, and if he can hold this position off, and he's got a nice gap over fourth at the moment, that'll be a fantastic result for them. But up front, looks like Mazomo is starting to get up on the back of Dave Clements. You can just see him in the top of frame there, and we're going to have another battle for the guys at the lead. They drop down into turn 11. We've seen a few issues already. The guys run a little wide. No such issue for our 2 leaders, but Clements getting a little bit of a wheel in the dirt there, locking almost a little half spin there, so able to recover that, which is a nice move.
Yeah, exactly it. And here they begin another lap. We're closing in to the final stages of race 2 for round number 9 here for the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Series. This is Mazomo versus Clements for the lead. Clements, I have to say, Daniel, has done a brilliant job this race to stay in P1 for every single lap, but it hasn't looked comfortable, hasn't it? It reminds me of Jarno Trulli back in the mid-2000s. He's managed to stay ahead. It's not a Trulli train, but you're just wondering, how is he still ahead? He just looks like he doesn't have the pace to do so, but credit to him, he can still win this race.
Yeah, he's doing a really good job. Lap time last time by was a little slower than what we've seen from Simon Mazomo, about 3/10 in it. So that's certainly not helping. But he's doing enough to be able to sort of back Mazomo up through some of those slower corners and help him get an exit and hold on to that position. However, we saw him have a little wide run there through into turn 1, start of the lap there, and he's maybe looking a little bit too much in the mirrors. So that'll be something he'll want to try and avoid, get the eyes focused forward. As 7 minutes to go, a chance for a win. He's not going to want to throw that away.
Now, those gaps, of course, are going to keep staying green, but eventually it's going to plateau. Because for Mazomo, he's going to reach the rear end of Clements, but he has to find a way around that big, fat Ferrari for the moment, which no one seems to be able to find a way around this race. It seems like the widest rear end you'll ever see. And I'm sure David Haynes, if you're watching, he races for Team Huge Ass. Of course, Huge Ass, the name. Clements making a name for the team right now, showing that the rear end of that Ferrari can be quite huge.
Oh, definitely, but I'm actually really interested to see what we can get from Simon. We know, after speaking to Justin Wallace at the end of race 2, he's saying the Porsche really came on strong in that final segment of the race here, and looks like we're seeing that again tonight with Mazomo. Last time by a little quicker again than Clements, so potentially could get a move done here in the last few minutes, but Jeremy Clark looks to be trying to move down the inside of Brett Hender down into 3. We'll get that done nice and clean.
Oh, no, he doesn't. Oh, there's a spin there, so Clark, it seemed he just carried a bit too much speed into the corner, and a bit of damage there for Hender as well, and that was just, I mean, again, Daniel, everyone's made that mistake in the past. You know, you're trying to make a move, you carry a bit too much speed into the apex, and Japanese tarmac just doesn't have that much grip.
No, it was a little unfortunate. I don't think there was any intent there from Clark when he went in there. It just looks like he kept on the brakes just that little too long, and around the rear end went. So it looks like Hender's been able to get away with it with no major damage. Matt Morris still pushing on. He's got Aaron Specchio just in front of him in the Porsche. And I think we've seen that tonight. It's something that the guys are really starting to struggle out there with the tyre conditions and how much grip they can get through the mid-corners.
So this is Matt Morris on screen. Morris is down in 12th, right behind Aaron Specchio. And I don't think Morris is going to be close enough for a move. But where is Clements? Clements would have begun. This will be the final lap, isn't it, for Clements right now? So if it was the USA, the white flag would wave, as they say. That'll be the final lap for Dave Clements. But Matt Morris, nevertheless, here with that damaged Porsche. This is where it was damaged in a battle for the lead earlier on. But what a race it's been for Dave Clements. I think he's going to maintain that lead at the moment, Daniel. And it'll be a race win that, of course, the Mach 1 Esports team will be proud of. 2 race wins for the squad. And I know they wanted that at Motegi, but I'm not sure if they expected it coming into the round.
No, I'm sure they'll take a win any way they can get him. I know the guys will be really, really happy with that. But he's got just on 9 corners left to go to defend this run. Mazomo trying to set up a move down the inside. Gonna almost get the nose in there as they run into turn 5. So cutting down the amount of opportunities that Mazomo's got left here at the end of this race. Working our way up through 130R. Turn 6, about to drop into the S's for the final time. And Clements is doing everything he needs to do right now to keep that Ferrari up in front.
I think you'll be okay, Dave Clements. He's got a few corners to go in this race. I'm getting nervous right now for Dave Clements. I'm feeling it for some reason. Goodness, go Dave Clements right now. Simon Mazomo will be angry at us. He'll be saying, no, go for me in the Porsche. Who's going to win this race? The second of 2 sprint races. The final time we run the sprint race format. Let's have a watch of this drag race all the way down to the final overtaking spot of the day. Let's see if Mazomo can do it. I tell you what, Daniel, if you peek from that far back, it'll have to take one whopper of a mirror driver to be able to see that. But Mazomo's trying every trick in the book. He's just a little bit too far behind. Oh, goodness, he throws it into that final corner. But it's not going to be enough here for Simon Mazomo. Dave Clements wins from Motegi for race 2. And it's a win he well deserved here for race 2 from Motegi for the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Series. How about Phoeben and Chris rounding out the top 10 down there in the rear end of the order? Cousins here on the final lap in 18th. After starting from 24th, climbs up 6 positions. A good race for himself. But, of course, for Mazomo and Hunter, let's not forget them, Daniel. Brilliant results for those 2 on the podium.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic run for Mazomo and Hunter, and great to see. Mazomo, I thought he was in for a shot through 14 there. Came up really, really late. And nearly got a move done there, but thought a little bit smarter of it. Came home second, no penalty.
We watch the rest of the order here on the final lap. Some discussions going on there with a few drivers. And, oh, goodness, that was a very fast, I think that was a Porsche, I see, just making their way through the field. But a brilliant second race. Thought that was quite entertaining. Some more accidents, of course, Daniel, this race. The racing standards and were a lot cleaner in race 1, but I'll tell you what, for a round of Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT action, that was very well run.
Yeah, a lot of great racing, especially race 1. We saw a couple of maybe unforced errors into 2, but all in all, I think the racing that everyone put on was absolutely fantastic, and it's what we've come to expect with the series so far. The guys doing an outstanding.
And we're going to look at our final race results here for race 2. There is Dave Clements, confirmed our victor, and the second Mach 1 Esports car to take victory here today at Motegi. He joins Adam Gardner as victors who took to the top step of the podium. Gardner ended up in 5th after starting from 10th. Of course, reverse grid pole for Clements, took advantage of that. Gardner had to start from 10th, took advantage of that as well. Up 5 positions. It's not the easiest track to overtake at, is Motegi. Down the back end of the order, Morris, after all the drama that occurred for Matt Morris, still ends up in 12th. I'm not sure if he expected to finish that high up after all the drama, but nevertheless, a good result for Morris despite all the drama. Gallo in 15th, making amends after starting 30th and not having the best of first races. Good event for Brad Klenk, up in the 16th. And then we cycle through the rest of the order, all the way down to 30th for our 30-car field. Scott Gamble ended up 22nd at the end of the day. Now, where was Neil Pearson? There he is, Neil Pearson, just ahead of Justin Wallace and Stephen Lattimore. 2 big names in the championship, finishing down the rear end of the field. Craig Edwards ended up 21st, if you were wondering, just ahead of that bunch. But a lot of drivers we don't expect to finish so far down allowed a brilliant opportunity for a lot of drivers ahead to claim some career best results for sure. So it'll be time to speak to winner for race 2, Dave Clements, and the Mach 1 Esports team today, clean sweeping our race wins. You yourself nip a race victory for yourself, and it was well fought for yourself, mate. It seemed like there were about 3 different drivers who were trying to overtake you, but they just couldn't do it at the end of the day. Well done.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, guys. Wow, what a race! I really wanted that. I was just having a chat to Simon about how hard I was working to stay in front of him and stop him from passing me. So there was really nothing more I had. That was absolutely everything. And yeah, for Mark 1, absolutely stoked. What a great race, great result.
And what do you think that is? Is that because the team's put in extra prep for this track? Do you think things went your way with reverse grid pole? Because we know the Mach 1 Esports organization is, of course, very well run.
Yeah, look, we have been putting in a lot of extra practice. Our boys, for every session that we throw up, even random ones during the weekend, we'll throw a session up and our boys will jump on. That happened today. We had 5 guys turn up for a practice session today that was about 5 minutes notice. So they're committed to having a good result. I didn't have the speed today. That was evident from qualifying in race 1, but getting out in front and getting our elbows out is a different story.
And most certainly you're going to have a lot of people to thank here because the team did such a brilliant job. There were a lot of Mach 1 Esports drivers out there and a lot of people behind the scenes who gets it done for you yourself and the team, and for Adam Gardner and anybody else, of course, you want to thank.
Yeah, look, absolutely. I'd like to thank all the boys. Adam Gardner, Chris Radicic was in the lines there. He helps us out with the engineering. Lee Vanderberg, Dave Miller, Mark Dial was spotting for Paddy tonight. He's a champion doing that. Paddy's a top bloke and a great driver as well. Stevie Bartholomew, Timothy Theben, and Stephen Varga was also lending a hand tonight. So a lot of guys behind the scenes that are making it happen for us. I'd also like to thank the sponsors. We've got RMS Race Management Service, Bow Repairs, LeBlanc Group, Night Rider Designs, Inzen, who give us technical harmony, CETA and Sam Blacklock Media, and also Comperte. And without the efforts of all of those people, wouldn't have been possible. So thank you kindly.
And of course, visit rms55.com.au for more information on their services. Thanks again, Dave Clements, Victor for race 2. We'll leave you to it, and we'll leave you to the champagne, to the wine, to the pub, wherever you're going to go after this race to celebrate this one. Probably the bed, I assume, mate. But it'll be Simon Mazzomo up next, and he'll be stood alongside Daniel Lee.
Yeah, g'day Simon. Congratulations, mate. Second position race 2 tonight. Looks like you had yourself a fantastic battle at the end of it there with Dave Clements. How was it from your point?
That was really good. I didn't really think I was sort of going to be there at the end. I was sort of catching them when Dave and Matt were sort of battling. I could notice I was catching, and I thought, okay, they'll be fine. I'll get to them eventually. But when Matt sort of had his spin, I didn't really think I'd have enough to have a go at him. But those last 3 or 4 laps, that car just clicked. And I was able to sort of put a lot of pressure on him. And fortunately, I couldn't quite get the move done. Did have a look sort of down into that hard right-hander, but just, couldn't quite get the nose there. And from then on, it just sort of, didn't quite have the pace to get it done.
Yeah, well, actually, you touched on a couple of good points there. We know at the end of race 1, when we spoke to Justin Walsh, he was saying the Porsche came on really, really strong. Looked like you've had the same sort of result yourself there. The tyres seemed to come on quite nicely. Was that sort of your point of view, how you felt the car?
Yeah, definitely. Not so much in the first race. I thought it was sort of fairly stable the whole way through. But this race definitely, like the start, it felt really, really good, felt really balanced. But once I'm sort of got myself in some clear air, and especially the last 3 or 4 laps, that the pace just came on really strong. So I was able to sort of bridge the gap, get onto the back of Dave, and actually have a shot at him. So, but definitely came on at the end.
Yeah, definitely. And then right at the very end, down in turn 11, we saw you attempt to try and sell the dummy from a long way back, but you came up really close into turn 14 there. It looked like you possibly almost could have caught the or tagged the back end of Clement's car there on X.
Was that last corner?
Yep.
Yeah. I'm not sure what Dave was doing, if he may have misjudged his braking, but he definitely slowed up in the middle of the corner. And that sort of freaked me out a little bit. I was sort of trying to get a straighter run off the corner, but then I'm not sure what's happened there, but he slid up in the middle of the corner, so I've had to jam the anchors on not to hit him. So that was good. I'd hate to finish the race like that. So yeah, I thought I'd just back off and let him have it.
Definitely. Well, look, mate, great run for yourself. Come home second. Before we let you go, is there anyone you want to give a shout out and thanks to for helping you out?
Big shout out to actually Cam Dance. He was my spotter tonight, and he kept me sane in that last bit of that race. So thanks to him. Sponsors Demon Tweaks, Fight Colorectal Cancer, GC Leagues Australia. All the guys at FT1 for their support, especially with me in the last couple of weeks. So thanks for them.
Fantastic, mate. Well, again, congratulations. Come home second tonight in race 2, 11th race 1. Great result for yourself, and we'll look forward to seeing you out next week at Montreal.
Be all good. See you then.
So our final interview, here he is. Our final interview for the day will be Richard Hunter, who came home in third, rounding out the podium. Now, Richard, believe it or not, I just watched your entire race on fast forward, and I feel like with a bit of Benny Hill music, it'd sum it up perfectly, because for yourself, you drove well, but it seemed like everybody ahead of you was just tripping over themselves.
Yeah, got very lucky. They were crashing everywhere in front of me. It's just zigzagging all over the place. So, yeah, it was good.
But for yourself, it was a good race nevertheless. You had some good pace. Even though you just missed out on reverse grid pole, I think you really earned that podium. Did you put in some extra work for this round to achieve that? Because sometimes you put in that extra work just to sort of get accustomed to the track, understand which curbs work, which lines work, and you pick up those extra tenths other drivers don't.
Yeah, no, it was good. Did a little bit of practice during the week, and just like the track. It's good to drive on, get a good feel on the road with the car. It's good.
And racing standards in the series, I think, are pretty good. Very well-run series. Race Control, of course, sponsored by Harvey Bay Autoglass, penalizing anybody that tries to trip over the rules. It's a very well-run series for yourself. Do you see yourself racing more and more in the AMF GT series?
Yeah, definitely. I like the idea of a fixed setup. It works well with me. I really enjoy it.
And are you representing any teams at the moment? Because we have you listed as a privateer. So can we just confirm if that's true?
Yeah, no, I'm with DPR Racing and Southwell Lift and Ben Max Mechanical and BetSmart Racing Services. Yeah, that's who I race with. And they've been a good bunch of blokes to race with.
All right, lovely. And finally, do we want to thank anybody else, of course, too? I feel like I ruined my final question by saying that.
Yeah, no, you're right. I just had a good race, and it was good racing with everybody. It was good.
So there we go, Richard Hunter, of course. And excuse me, that's some information from my side that was wrong. We do have you listed as DPR Racing now, Richard, so that's all updated for yourself. So well done to him on a podium. And Daniel, we'll hope to see him again in the future for sure. But for next round, it'll be Montreal. It'll be retro round for the 90-minute enduro. Give us more of a spiel on that.
Yeah, so the guys are opening up retro round at Montreal, 90-minute race. Really looking forward to see what kind of liveries some of these drivers actually get up and show. I think we're going to be in for a really good treat. Go away from what we've seen traditionally out there for everyone, but it's a great initiative for the guys to jump on and see some of the retro stuff. For anyone who watched Sandown this week, we saw some fantastic liveries as a result of that, and no doubt we'll see very similar designs come out again next week.
Yes, sir. Those are some brilliant liveries at Sandown, of course. A racetrack, I hope, I really hope Sandown, wasn't there rumors, Daniel, of Sandown being turned into residential, turned into Oran Park, basically? I don't want that to happen. Sandown's awesome.
Well, yeah, I think there was a rumor, but they did a lot of work to try and get the circuit back up to snuff, and I think she'll probably stay on the calendar a little longer. But very much looking forward to seeing what we get next week out, and no doubt for all the guys putting in a lot of effort to get those designs finalised and ready to go for next weekend.
Yep, awesome for Sandown. Probably just need some higher barriers, of course, and catch fencing after what happened today. Goodness me. Thank God everybody was safe after that one. But for virtual racing for us, we're glad that everybody is safe in this environment, and these elegant GTEs we'll be back racing again for the next race on the 17th of November. And that is our retro round that we are talking about. It'll be 90 minutes around the circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal, my favorite circuit in motorsports, believe it or not. It'll be a 2-stop race. Drivers are required to take 4 tires in at least one of those stops, and it makes the strategy ever so interesting. If you had a look at the Le Mans race earlier on this season, or even that thriller at the Circuit of the Americas, it's going to prove to be a different beast than it was today at Motegi for sure. But from myself, Jonathan Simon, Daniel Lead alongside me, and Scott Newton behind the scenes in production, hope you enjoyed this Apex Racing TV broadcast wherever you watch on our associated platform. Thanks, of course, to the AMF GT series and, of course, all their associated partners. We will say so long from Twin, Ring Motegi, and Japan, and we will see you in Canada virtually in a week's time.